So yeah, we will be recording today's session, and we've recorded all the other Curious About series. So those are hosted on our YouTube playlist, which is part of the county office's YouTube channel, which is linked in the presentation. So you guys will have all that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. If you guys don't mind letting people in as they come, because we have a packed presentation, so I want to make sure I give everybody enough time. All right, so welcome to Curious About VAPA. My name is Jessica Sierra. I'm a resource teacher with the EdTech team here at SDCOE. I'm joined by my colleagues. We have Dr. Alicia Gallegos-Butters, who's our Director of EdTech. We have Mark Brickley, who's our esports coordinator, and Pamela Rabin is another EdTech coordinator doing a lot of work with AR/VR right now. So if you've come to our previous sessions, you might remember her AR/VR session from a couple months ago. Again, you can visit our website and our YouTube playlist to watch any of our older sessions, and this one will be hosted on there within the next week or so as well. Just a little plug for some of our upcoming events. We have our Esports Network meetup coming up at the end of May. If you're interested in that with Mark and some of the people he's working with esports, you can register using this link. We also have an EdTech Network, which is a series that we do that dives a little more into how to use some of this EdTech, whereas Curious About is more of like our overview series of technology that's coming out that we're interested in. Our EdTech Network in May will be all about ChatGPT. So if you've followed our series, we've done a Curious About ChatGPT that was very like broad. It was back in January, right when the hype was exploding about ChatGPT. In this session, we're looking to go more hands-on, how teachers are using it, give some tools on how to implement things using ChatGPT. So if you're interested in that, you can register there. And then we have an AR/VR networking meeting, which is more of like a playground event that Pam is hosting in the middle of May. So if you're interested in seeing how to use AR/VR in your education setting, register for that, and you can come check out our building here in Linda Vista. Okay, so getting right into it. So today's session is all about VAPA. A lot of you are here, judging from the comments in the registration, to find out all about Prop 28. So we have our in-house expert, Pauline Crooks from SDCOE, to give us the scoop on Prop 28 and what that means for us. We also have a section on some local resources you can tap into, partnership organizations, and that will be led by Carrie Javari from Arts Education Connection in San Diego. I think that's right. We also have a teacher from Millennial Tech Middle School, Jason Berman, is here to show us a lesson, a project that he does with his students using technology to create art. And then if we have any time, I'll go through very quickly some tools, EdTech tools that you can use to support VAPA in your core classes or in your art classes. All right, so generally these sessions are pretty hands-off, just like overviewing, sit and get type of sessions, but I did want to do a little interaction using some of these AI art generators. So if you're not familiar with these, Dolly 2 is kind of the big one that you hear the name a lot, but there are literally dozens of AI art generators out there. Midjourney is a big one. Starry AI and Playground are some newer ones that I've discovered. Playground, thanks to Jason. But essentially, these are AI platforms that turn a written prompt into a piece of artwork, and it's pretty phenomenal the art that it can come up with. There are some controversies and some ethical concerns about using these generators and how they have combed the internet to get their resources that help develop these or generate these art. So if you're interested in that, there's a fascinating New York Times article from a comic strip artist who noticed that AI is sort of stealing some of her work, or mimicking her style, I guess. So if you're interested in that, I recommend checking that article. So we're going to use Playground AI for this activity. And what I'd like you to do is just drop in the chat, actually more than about a sentence that paints a picture of your mood right now. So the key with these art generators is to be as detailed as possible. Try to use at least 5 words. Remember all your descriptive language. Try to infuse as many adjectives as you can. Mood language. If you want to name an art style or a genre or a specific artist, you can. Color scheme, anything you can put that would be more detailed. And I'm going to have my colleagues pick one sentence that is intriguing, and we're going to generate some art that would capture how we're feeling today. So while you guys are working on that, I'm going to switch over to Playground AI. And we're going to generate some art. So on Playground AI, they give you a lot of different options. So you can pick different dimensions. You can pick the quality. Over here, you have different filters that you can put on it based on different art styles. Lots of different options there. And then we have the prompt, which is becoming an art in and of itself, writing these AI prompts. And then lots of other things that you could include. But we're going to keep it simple and just do a prompt and maybe pick a filter.
I like the, someone said they're super hungry, and I can relate. Steph Johnson, I like abstract, swirling confusion, light and clarity. I'm going to plug that one in and see what it does.
I like that one. That could
I
be
like
interesting.
Heidi's I'm feeling inquisitive, cold from a dreary day and scrambled like a cubist artwork.
Jason's is pretty good. A middle-aged man with a short beard and thick black glasses, jumping up in the air excitedly with colorful, energetic shapes flowing out behind him. Anime screenshot from a Studio Ghibli film.
There actually is anime as an option, which is good for that.
That is true. Should we try that one?
My vote, it will be for that one.
Oh, I forgot I can't copy and paste from the chat. Okay. Let's see.
So we picked the longest one for you, by the way, Jessica.
I know. I think I'm gonna pick a shorter one, guys. Let's go with Heidi's. Let's see what that generates. Sorry, Jason. You have a great quote, but I'm not writing all that.
I do like Amanda's though. I'm feeling a little Edvard Munch's Scream with a little bit of Shakespeare's Tempest thrown in. That's a good one too.
Yes, and Steph, yours eerily reminds me of what I see when I get a migraine. Like the precursors.
The migraine aura.
Yeah, that's it. That's some of them. I'm like, wow, that's pretty accurate.
Or too much time in front of a computer screen all day.
Yeah, it's pretty. There are a lot of colors in the one that I did, but.
Okay, since we said Cubist artwork, do we have a Cubist artwork? Or should let's just maybe see what it comes up with. Yeah, let's try it without a filter first. Okay, so we give it a few seconds. You can select how many images you want it to generate, if it's just one. Or I have 4 set. Okay, so this is how we're feeling today. Inquisitive, cold from a dreary day, scrambled like a Cubist artwork. I kind of like the one with the face. I like this one down here. Yeah. Okay, let's do that one. Okay, so we can download it. And then I'm going back to my will be downloading. There we go. Back to my presentation. Oh, Tam already put one in there. Is that Steph? Nice. It does look like a migraine aura. All right. So there's our artwork for today. That's the mood we're all feeling. I can relate. So you can see how quickly these AI algorithms can generate art. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it, which I think Jason will be getting into later. All right, on to the nitty gritty stuff. Funding for VAPA in California. So I know many of you are here because there was this proposition last year on the ballot that passed, and it seems like there's this giant windfall of cash that's finally coming to VAPA. But from some conferences I've been to, I know that it's a little more tricky than that because they can't make it that easy for us to spend this money, of course. There are some ways that it needs to be spent and some stipulations. So I am going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over to Pauline Crooks to give us the scoop on that. Thanks for being here, Pauline.
It is my pleasure. So I am the arts coordinator at the County Office of Education, and my email address is there for you, and I will make sure you have access to all of these slides. And what I'm going to share with you today is the very best information we have as of today, April 12th, 2023, a little after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because there are some details we're waiting for, and we don't have them yet, but I'm going to tell you what we do know. So to give you a little bit of background on current events in arts education in our state, I want to make sure that everyone is aware that in 2019, we had new art standards adopted by the California State Board of Education. In 2020, we had our framework adopted. We had new instructional materials at the end of 2021. The Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials Block Grant, also known as AB 185, also known as the Kitchen Sink Grant, because it became useful for a lot of different things. And the first half of that went out in late November, early December, and the governor's budget paused the second payment of that, as many of you may be aware, and we're waiting till the May revise to find out what happens next with that. And then in November, as was mentioned, Proposition 28 passed, and that is ongoing funding. So I'm going to go through a lot of information. We'll have access to the recording and the slides, and then feel free to put any questions in the chat. So this past election, Proposition 28, known as the Arts and Music in Schools Funding Guarantee and Accountability Act, passed by 64.4%. And that is a huge number that the voters overwhelmingly voted to approve this. And just for your reference point, Prop 98 passed with 50.7%. So this had a huge amount of support behind it. What Proposition 28 does is provide additional K-12 public schools, including our charter schools, an annual allocation for arts and music programs beginning July 1. And this measure requires the state to provide additional funding to increase, and I'm the one that bolded and underlined those words, by the way, arts instruction and programming in our schools. The amount is equal to 1% of Prop 98 funding that K-12 schools received in the previous year. So the amount that will be coming to our schools starting in July 1 is based on the 2022-23 Prop 98 funding. It doesn't come out of Prop 98 funding. It's taking away from something else in the general fund of the state budget. So this is new money coming to schools. So this payment is considered above the constitutionally required amount of funding for schools. It could be reduced, and it will fluctuate the way Prop 98 funding fluctuates. So if have heard people saying, oh no, they keep changing what the dollar amount's going to be, that's because the Prop 98 funding number isn't completely finalized yet. So every year it could fluctuate up and down a little bit the way other education dollars fluctuate. The way the money is being allocated to our school districts is 70% of the share that each district receives is based on enrollment, and the other 30% is based on the percentage of low-income students at each school site. case you're wondering how they come up with the dollar amount. And then the LEA, the district, will receive the amount of money for each school, and then they need to portion it out to each of their schools based on that split. The school district can keep up to 1% for administrative cost, but the remainder has to go to each school based on their enrollment and the percentage of low income students that they have. And if your district has 500 or more students, at least 80% of that money has to be spent to employ certificated or classified employees to provide arts education instruction. And I'm highlighting those things because people are like, well, could we pay somebody that's going to like repair instruments, for example, or something like that? If that person isn't directly instructing students, the answer is no. So it has to be employees of the school district, certificated or classified, who are providing arts education instruction. The remaining money that's left, so at least 80% is spent on those people providing education. The district could keep 1%. Any of that remaining 19% or less is to be used for training, supplies and materials, and arts education partnerships, such as what Carrie's going to talk to you about in a few minutes. The Department of Education can provide a waiver for the staffing requirement of 80% to school sites upon written request from the principal. And this is where some of the details that we're waiting on from the CDE come into play. The CDE has not created the waiver yet, and some other things. So they are still working on this because the proposition did not provide for any funding for the California Department of Education to create any positions or to handle any of these pieces. So they are at this time working those things out. And while we wait for them to do that piece, there's a lot we can do, but we're waiting to see what the waiver could look like if they decide to provide one. Now, the intent of having a waiver permitted is so that a school site could build a program over the course of 2 or 3 years. So if a school district decides they're going to want to build some kind of new media arts class, because Jason has some amazing things he's going to share with you in a little while. And let's say you want to create something like that, but you're going to need to purchase some equipment and have some training provided to teachers to learn how to use that equipment with students. Then the intent of the waiver is for a district to say, well, we need to spend a little more than the 19 to 20% on materials and training to get this program launched. So this year we need to spend like 30% of the money on materials and training, and maybe next year about 20 to 30 or 30%. And then the following year, then we'll be at the 80-20 split. And so that's the intent behind the waiver. It's not for some permanent change to how our school site is going to spend the money. Now, this is the other extremely important thing. The funding, as I mentioned at the beginning, is to supplement. So it's to add to what already exists, not to then, oh, well, we've been paying for this theater teacher from our school's budget, and now we've got this Prop 28 money. So now we're going to switch and pay our theater teacher from Prop 28 money and use that other money to hire a new science teacher. That would be supplanting. You can't do that. So it has to be to add to what exists this school year. And so that's something that's really important. We've heard of a couple of instances where a district like laid off all their arts teachers before March 15th, thinking, oh, we'll just bring them back with Prop 28 money. Well, that can't happen. It has to be to add new things for students. And then at every school site, every principal, each principal has to write a plan for how the money is going to be spent. And in some of our districts, there's been ongoing conversation, and we know the district and principals have been working together to figure these things out. And in other districts, they're like, or other school sites, oh, wow, there's money. Or people, you may even come across a principal that's not sure, hasn't heard really a lot about this yet. And you're welcome to refer them to me or to share these slides or video with them. So every school year, a principal is going to need to write a plan on how to spend the money. And at the end of every school year, there has to be a report written by the principal on how the funds were spent. And then that has to be approved by the school board and posted on the district's website or the school's website. And again, this is what needs to be in the report. There's not a report template and there's not a plan template yet because the Department of Education is still figuring that out. But we know some of the things that will be part of that report and plan. So at the end of the school year, the school will need to list what kinds of arts programs were funded, the number of staff, listing out full-time equivalent teachers, classified personnel, teaching aides, the number of students served, and the number of school sites that were providing arts education programs using the funds from Prop 28. And then these reports are subject to an annual audit. So one other thing I want to mention also that was not in the slides, that each school site has 3 years to spend each year's chunk of funding. So for the 23-24 school year, you have 3 school years to spend that funding. So maybe your school site isn't quite sure what they're going to do yet, or they've got a plan for half the money. You don't want to just spend the money just to spend it, right? I think a lot of us have been in that position in education before, like, oh, there's $200 or whatever it is. You have to spend this before we lose it. You have 3 years to spend that money. So it's okay if your school is not really sure how they're going to spend the money yet, because you have 3 years to spend each year's allocation. Now, some next steps, because this is something that I want to share with you. So what are some things that you can do right now while we're waiting for some other details? So one thing, you can figure out if your school district has a strategic arts education plan. And if you do, take a look at that and see what you could implement at your school site that would align to your district plan. If you don't have a district plan, I'm happy to support you in writing one. Those plans should be connected to your LCAP. If you have a portrait of a graduate for your district or your school or a similar document, look at your school or district's mission, vision, and goals. If you have a school site plan, take a look at that, because these things should all go together and connect to really help support students and not just be an isolated thing that lives outside of the overall goals you have for students. You want to assess your current arts education programs, because this is the baseline year to be able to say we're adding to what we have. So it's really important to know what you have. And then you need to create or revise a plan and then implement that and then measure that progress over time. And in our arts education framework, here are some questions from chapter 9 of the framework that can really help guide you in figuring out what you have. So there are 5 arts disciplines, in case anybody here isn't aware. We have dance, we have media arts, music, theater, and visual arts. Figuring out who's teaching those courses, who has access to those courses, that's a really important thing. So if you know your students who are English learners, you've noticed that they're not really involved in the arts, figure out why. Figure out what courses you could offer that would help engage those students in arts instruction. And then you want to make sure that the instruction is aligned to the California arts standards. So regardless, this money has to be spent in a way that's aligned to our art standards. And then another list of questions, figuring out, again, who has access, what materials or supplies do you have? Although you can't use the money on facilities, if your school site is really committed to starting a dance class and you know you need flooring for a dance space, then identify a funding source that you could use to make sure students have a safe space to dance. But you want to figure out what it is you have and what your students need so that you can implement this funding in a way that will really help support your students. And additional next steps is connecting with other people, like you're here today, to connect with others, to continue to learn. At the county office, we have an Arts Leaders Collaborative, and we have 3 more sessions left for this school year. And I know some of the people on here right now are involved in this group, and it would be great to have someone from every district joining this group. We have an art summer book study that we're doing with Imperial and Orange County also, and we're going to be reading the book Street Data together, which, if you haven't read that book, and can be an excellent way for you to really connect with your students and your community and families and find out what you can add to really make sure you're supporting students. And then we're also running across the region some increasing access to arts education, implementing Prop 28 professional learning sessions, so that you can come with a team of people from your district or your school site to really look more in depth for a whole day and share ideas, find out what other schools are doing, because our schools are also unique and different sizes. And so we want to make sure you have really good ideas and support. So I have an event on June 28th at SDCOE. There's one in July at Orange County Department of Education. And then we're doing a virtual session in August. And I can get you all the links to register for those things. And then last but not least, we know that we are going to need 600 new arts educators in our county to fill the new positions that will be created and are being created by implementing Prop 28. So we have an educator pathways department at SDCOE, and they have this amazing website that will help people figure out where they are now and how they become a classified employee, credentialed employee, find financial support for that, all of the different pieces. And making sure our students know that being an educator and being an arts educator is a viable career pathway, because this funding is not going away. So it is here to stay, and we know there are a lot of jobs involved in arts education. So that is what I wanted to share with you today. If you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat. I know that was a lot of information, but I wanted to make sure that you got a good overview of Proposition 28.
Awesome. Thank you, Pauline. Great information. Any questions for Pauline?
I'd be happy to share the slide deck, and Jessica can let me know if it's easier for me to just insert the slides into the one she has, or how we want to handle that, but I'm happy to share those with you.
My sound is
thanks.
pretty bad, so I just have a quick question about, you said the money could be used for facilities, like to give a good dance floor, or could not?
It
My
could
sound's
not.
terrible. Not. Okay.
Yeah, it cannot. And so, and we know there's other funding available in education. And so if your community feels really strongly that this is what our students need, then there are lots of options to figuring that out.
Your husband put a question in the chat.
That's awesome. Yeah, so you will not be 1 year behind. So I know there are some schools that are really thinking, there's some schools that I've been talking to since the summer, because there was no major opposition to this proposition at all, which is why it passed so overwhelmingly. And so we've been planning for a while, knowing, okay, what could this look like? And just, brainstorming and trying to figure out what to do. So there are people that already are posting positions for jobs and hiring people now. And we know there are other districts that I talk to, and they say, I think we're going to take a year and be really thoughtful and cautious about this. Want to make sure we're doing the right thing. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, because every school is so unique, and every district and every part of our county and our state. And that's you have to do what's best for your students. And so you will not be 1 year behind. You could wait and spend 3 years of money at the same time. But we also want to, as a parent, when I'm thinking about my third grader, I know I want my third grader to actually have arts education as a fourth grader and not wait till they're in middle school or seventh grade or something. So that's something else to think about, trying to find a balance there. So you don't want to just jump into something and rush into something and have it, not go well. But you also want to figure out what you can do for our students now. Yes, you are only in fourth grade once. So, well, hopefully. No.
We have one more question. Since money can be spent over 3 years, can money be saved to make bigger purchases? For example, her school site's looking to hire some part-time art staff as full-time staff. Could the funding be used to cover the difference in salary?
Yes. So if someone is, 40% employee right now, you can use you can fund the other 60% of their salary, and that's not supplanting. So one of the easiest ways, I think, to find those 600 people is to make part-time people full, assuming they have the time to commit to that. And I guess it depends on what the bigger purchases are, because if you get a waiver and then they approve that, but again, we don't know what the waiver looks like. We just know what the intention behind the waiver is. You could make a bigger purchase potentially, but that would really, we don't know. And I can't read the mind of the people that aren't yet in positions not yet created by the Department of Education. So multiple schools can pool their money within a district, which I know can get complicated if you're in a one school district, which we have several of. But you can, as long as, so if my third graders elementary school wanted to partner up with another elementary school and they split the money proportionally and the person spent their time proportionately at the two sites. So if they were doing 50-50, then the teacher would have to spend 2.5 days at one school and 2.5 days at the other school, assuming it was like a full-time position. But so you couldn't each put in some money and then, you spend an even amount of time when this school paid 70% of the salary and this school paid 30%. It has to be proportional to how the money is being put together. I hope that helps, Amanda.
Great questions. All right, and I have Pauline's information in the slides, and we'll put her slides in there too, so you guys can get a hold of her with any follow-up questions you have after this. Okay, so I am going to turn it over now to Carrie, who's going to talk about that 12%. That's a more flexible funding, and if your school or district is looking for people to partner with, or resources that are available in the local communities, Carrie's your girl.
Hey everyone, it's nice to see you today. I'm Carrie Javeri. I'm the Professional Learning and Community Programs Manager at Arts Education Connection San Diego. AEC-SD, as we like to call ourselves, partners with SDCOE. And I've got a slide presentation, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull it up and talk to you a little bit about the Arts Education Resource Organization and how we can support you in spending. I think it's 19%, isn't it, Pauline? Am I okay? So I'm correct on that.
That's right. My math was off. Not a math teacher.
That's okay. I think there's a lot of information going around about this. Oh. So ARROW, or the Arts Education Resource Organization, like I said, it's a partnership between SDCOE and AEC-SD, and a group of folks, collective of arts organizations and teaching artists working together to connect schools and the art community. So what does that look like? Well, I thought I would share mission and vision with you, and then we can talk a little bit more about some of the resources we're able to offer. So the mission of ARROW is to build bridges between schools and the arts community, and this is all in service of ensuring an arts inclusive education for all San Diego County students. Our vision is that all San Diego County students will have access to engaging, relevant, and quality arts education. So ARROW members are, it's a wide variety, everything from folks who are focused on one art form like dance to organizations like the ones I work at that can offer any of these disciplines: dance, music, theater, visual, literary, and media arts. Pauline Crooks is our connection on the SDCOE side, so I've given you her email address here. And some of the resources that you can find on that SDCOE website are things like the Digital Arts Pack, which is information, our marketing information for organizations that are ARROW members. There's also a directory of arts partners on the website that you can search by art form. So if you know you want to do a media arts program, you can plug that in and find all the organizations in SD County that can offer those services for you. And I'm going to go ahead and drop that website into the chat. That is my presentation. I know that when Jessica and I talked, we spoke a little bit about, she was interested in finding out more about potential internships or apprenticeships that some of the arts partners are providing. I can speak to that a bit. I think both Steph Johnston and Amanda Wallace can also speak to this. A lot of the work that's happening with those apprenticeships or those paid stipends for students or internships are happening with JCCS programs. So two of the programs that I've been doing in partnership with Amanda and Steph are fellowship programs. One is a visual art career pathway program. One is a theater art career pathway program. For our visual art career pathway program, we're in the 3rd year of the program, and we're actually hiring past students to come back and work in the classroom. So they're serving as student teaching artists, helping our teaching artists, things like supply setup and demoing art techniques and cleaning up and setting up, all that good stuff. But 1 or 2 of those students have actually come back to help with things like the exhibition setup for the Pathways program, and have also done community art activities in places like the Mega Conference. So if anyone is interested in that, like I said, Steph and Amanda are good resources. I know Outside the Lens, for those of you who are working with Outside the Lens, they are a media arts organization. They're also offering those kinds of opportunities for students. Steph and Amanda, is there anything that I missed that you would like to jump in and share about apprenticeships, internships?
I will say that it's kind of an expanding area that we were piloting. It was a fantastic collaboration. And now, at least for JCCS, we're looking at partnering with others on ways to get students paid for doing additional work outside of the classroom. SBCS and Access are 2 great countywide programs. And so if anyone wants any information on them, I've dropped my email in the chat. Thank you, Carrie.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. And the only thing
Carrie.
I'd like to add is with some of our students, there's the overlap of the CTE and the VAPA that we're looking at as well.
Yeah, 600 jobs. We've got to train these kids to get ready to enter the workforce. That's a great number to know. I can't wait to like blast that out there and tell people to get going. Okay, so let me get back to my presentation. Thank you, Steph, Amanda, Carrie. That was all super awesome information. So I added this slide because I know a lot of this has just been VAPA. So you might be thinking, you know, I came to this ed tech session. What about the ed tech? What does that have to do with art? And there's some really phenomenal tools out there to use technology to create art. We saw the AI stuff. But aside from computer generated art, we've got human generated art using technology. And this is one super cool cutting edge project that we have up in our labs here. This is an organization called Amplifier, and they have an augmented reality app that takes these posters and brings them to life. So I'll just play 20 seconds of this, but if you use the app on your phone, oh, can you guys hear the sound? No? Okay. Stop sharing. Add that because you've got to hear the sound. It's just a great.
But it's also our generation's greatest
Is it working now? Okay.
opportunity to come together. We are flooding the streets, the courthouses, and the voting booths by the millions. The power to make a difference doesn't just come from political leaders. It comes from young people like you.
So, you know, if you are a wine drinker, you might have seen that Snoop Dogg has some wine labels that do the same kind of thing. But imagine this technology in like graduate portfolios, business cards, posters on your walls. There's some really cool applications. So we are working to put something together to teach teachers how to build these AR posters coming to our labs this summer. So stay tuned for that. But there's also a lot of VR experiences that integrate art. Like the Louvre has a tour that you could do over VR headsets. And they also have this cool Mona Lisa experience where it really dives into the layers of the painting. So lots of interesting applications there with AR and VR. And then for the rest of our time, I think I'm going to turn it over to Jason to show you a little bit about what he does with his kids and his media arts program at Millennial Tech. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Berman. I teach over at Millennial Tech Middle School, which is a public SDUSD Title I middle school over here off of Euclid, off of the 94 in San Diego. We've been really getting into AI this year, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can show you some of the cool stuff we've been doing. Let's see here. All right. Don't worry about the creepy AI people here. Let me this full screen. Okay. Can everyone see it okay? Is it all right? There's been two main programs I've been using. I started off using Crayon AI, which is another free one. However, I will say right now that Playground AI is the better of the free artificial intelligence image makers that I found, and it's consistently updated and made better. So the only reason that I also link when I give these projects out to my students, the Crayon AI, is because Playground AI has amount of free images you can do in a day. And sometimes the kids go hog wild and use all of them before they are done with the assignment. So I always have a backup way that they can still finish it. One of the easier ways to start is with a game I made called Prompt Off, where basically you can make it competitive if your kids are into that, or you can just have it be a sharing experience. If your kids do not like competition, it'll work either way. Basically, you give the students prompts that then they have to take that prompt and somehow communicate with the AI the best way to make the image, which is not an easy goal. And it gets them thinking about vocabulary. It gets them thinking about descriptive sentences. I'll show you some examples here in a second. I use a color coordinated system for my kids. This is the example slide I gave them. And I'll be honest, I cheated. I used Midjourney. I didn't use Playground AI with this sample image. Midjourney is probably the nicest, easiest one to use out of the box, but it also costs money and it's hard to incorporate into the classroom, unfortunately, because it is a Discord chatbot. So sorry, I cheated on this one. But if you look at my prompt, the one the students are going to follow is show me the Great Nintendo Wars. The movie just came out, the Mario movie. So I was trying to build on the excitement because they keep singing that stupid Peaches song that Bowser sings in it. I don't know if you've heard it yet. It's very catchy. So I did for my example prompt, Princess Peach driving a tank through King Koopa's castle in a Nintendo art style. It has a subject, actually has a couple subjects, has a sub-subject too, a style description, a setting, and an action. Getting the kids to think about the different parts of the prompt is going to be more and more important because it needs all of these things. The more descriptive you are, the more control you have over what's actually going to come out of the end results. Let me get out of here so I can actually show you some of the stuff kids have done. I was sick this Monday, and this was our subplans. Give me 1 second. All right. So they totally stole my tank idea. That's okay. This student did Princess Peach driving a tank through King Koopa's castle in a Nintendo art style. Total ripoff, but it came out pretty cool. This is the same student. Every one of these slides, when I give it to them, this will have no image in the middle. It will just say, replace this prompt with your prompt right here. And it has this little hint bot, so it keeps them in the game and knowing what to do, of course. And it is helpful to give the links on each page because they consistently will forget what exact one to use. Let's see what we got here. A monkey holding, good, a mirror, this should also be green, of course, in the forest in a cartoonish style. Basically, I give them a set amount of lab time to work on these. Ooh, Jack Black looks strange there. I give them a set amount of time to work with this. It helps build their literacy. It helps them get to think how to use descriptive words. And then when we come, whether we're doing the competition style or the sharing style, we look at all of these and we talk about things that we added to the prompt to make it work, because usually this is not their first try is what's coming up on the screen. They usually have to keep trying it a little bit, because sometimes until you add in all those descriptive language, it can look bad unless it's highly stylized. While drinking engagement, sitting alone in a restaurant by himself in a cartoon. You get the idea. And it's a nice thing to see, because you'll see that, sorry, give me 1 second, it's hard to see the top because of that. You'll see different students will have totally different styles, totally different prompts. In the prompts I give them, I give some that are very structured. I give some that are open-ended, like show me the funniest thing you can think of right now. Show me celebrity doing something weird. I don't know what's wrong with poor Tom Holland here, but something is wrong. Don't even want to get started on Sanji here. It is a fun creative writing exercise just to even think what they're going to come up with. Show me true heroics. Blank character. I asked the students because he couldn't think of exactly what character to put in, so he put blank. Saving puppy from truck, rural neighborhood. I'm guessing that says dramatic. Sorry, dramatic. Sorry, my Zoom was blocking it. Sometimes I like to throw them a total curveball. Show me Glapper the Great. Just a made-up word, just to see what they'll come up with. And overwhelmingly, I will say they thought that Rourke sounds like pork, so there was a lot of pig things. Not all the time. Where was the really interesting one? I think it was hers. Oh, I like this one. Sorry. An alien looking down on crowds of humans, also should be a subject, on his ship in space in a black and white comic style. You will see the kind of media your kids consume. You'll see what they're currently into media-wise also, because they will gravitate towards it. You've seen all the Nintendo stuff in the one kids one. There was very little Nintendo in this one. Excuse me. So that's one way to get started that I think is pretty easy and fun before you get into more complicated AI art projects. But I would like to show you the other thing that I had my students do, web comic project. This one's a little bit more advanced, but basically what they do is they're going to use images from the AI art tools and put one per slide as a big comic panel. And that way they can use the call out shapes like the dialogue boxes. They could use the squares if it's like a descriptive comic book, and basically just have a Google slide per slide, and you can share your story that way and have a cohesive story. Some things to know about AI art if you haven't played with it. It is hard to get consistent characters, unfortunately. However, this also trains them to use, instead of celebrity names and things, to describe things like a black French bulldog wearing a business suit and tie. If you do something descriptive like that, you can at least get in the same ballpark for your story, so it looks like the same character, even though there will be little tiny differences. But within Google Slides, inside of this insert, you actually have shapes. And this, inside of callouts, you can do like a thinking dialogue box. You can do 3 different styles of these type where you just draw it, and you can actually see it. It's kind of going around. I don't know if you can see. You can point it wherever you want and point it in your character's mouth. So it will look like a legit comic when you're done, and you can just click in the middle and type, hello, I am a dog. It works pretty well as far as a comic. If your kids don't have Photoshop skills, this is a great way to get them started, where you don't have to worry about layout and things. I was going really crazy with the French bulldog, sorry. Delicatessen dog. As you can see, not exactly the same kind of dog. So I had to be creative and write it into my story as well. Some pro tips for the Playground AI I would like to finish with, because I didn't want to overload with a bunch of projects. You can use these images. I had my kids cut them out in Photoshop, and we began animating with it. We did a bunch of Black History Month animations that turned out pretty fun. However, with starting with these kind of things, when you're in Playground AI, this is a total game changer. There's an actions little bubble that'll be up here. And if you click on actions, it has some really cool advanced features, but there's one that is very important if you want sharp, clear images. This upscale by 4x, this will take the image and actually make it into a decent size where you can print it, you can use it in a video, and here you can download it. Or if you're using it on a Google slide where you don't need it that big, but you still want it sharp, you can right click on it and copy image. And then you can just literally just paste it right into your thing and look how it's almost the perfect size. Another just a quick tip, you could either drag this side out so it's the full thing, but it stretches it a little. What I like to do so it doesn't stretch out is I grab it by the corner and you can double click on it. If you double click on an image, you'll notice these little black corners come up. This is cropping. So you can pull it down till you see the red. That's the top of the thing. Oh, sorry. There must have been another thing there. Sorry. Here we go. Now I can see it right there. And that way you can, without stretching it out and doing the wrong size, you can actually get it right there and then you can keep adding to your comic. But that upscale ×4, it will make the images a lot nicer to look at. It'll get rid of the blurriness and the pixelization. There is tons of things on this. You can do things called in painting where you you erase a part of the picture and just fill in the part of the picture. You can use image to image, but that's all advanced stuff. I would get your students started working just with the prompts. They can add some filters if they want some easy where they don't have to remember a lot of prompt things. They can make a cinematic style where it always looks kind of a certain way. The last thing I'll say, because I'm giving a lot of information, I don't want to overload you. There is a model up here on the top right. It starts on Stable Diffusion 1.5. All a model is like a set of training data that this artificial intelligence has gotten. The Playground team has just released this Playground version 1, and I have noticed it to be a lot cleaner as far as the artwork if you do change this to Playground version 1. You can even switch to Dolly, but you need a subscription, unfortunately, and Stable Diffusion 2.1. But Playground version 1 has been pretty nice since it's come out the last week. We've been playing with it and I've noticed a big difference in the quality.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. That is super cool.
I hope that's helpful. I hope that's not too much random stuff.
No, that was great. That's a great use of AI, and I could be applied in lots of different content, like obvious English connections there, historical fiction type of projects, science projects. I know you and I had talked about kids like making up a fictitious biome, or like setting a comic in a certain, scientific setting. So yeah, lots of cool stuff. I know we only have a couple minutes left, so I just wanted to walk you through the resources here that you can check out on your own time. So like Pauline said, there are 5 domains of arts that are identified in the framework. So that's kind of what I based it off of. Some other easy ways to connect technology to art. I tried to do lots of free resources here, so you don't have to tap into that 19% for a lot of these, but you can, and there's a lot of premium features you could go with if you want. But dance has a really cool connection to coding that Mark and I just recently went to the Q conference and learned all about. So if you're doing some coding, consider doing some dancing first, and there's a whole article about that. Music, if you've ever delved into GarageBand, it's free and they have a ton of resources for educators that I've linked here. One project that I did with my students in juvenile hall was raps that they wrote in the vein of Hamilton style. So I've linked one of those here. This one actually won a competition with the Gilder Lerman organization, and we got to take 5 kids to go see the play when it was here in San Diego. But lots of opportunity to integrate music in your classes. Canva, if you didn't know, is a sort of like a design platform that is free for educators and your students. So if you sign up for free, you can have your students join your class for free and you get all the premium features. Also really great teacher tool to make those like posters and handouts a little more professional looking. And if you have the Adobe suite, which a lot of schools do, there's a ton of cool resources in there. I know Jason and I went through a few when we were talking. Arrow is one that I'm really excited about. It's like a newer product that's coming out, but that does like the VR stuff, the AR stuff. So keep an eye out for that. Theater, we have the Ivy Awards here locally. Great way to incorporate theater and acting and filming. Animation software, podcasting, we do a little bit of here at the LBIC. So if you're interested in a podcasting lab, let me know. We have a great instructor that does that here. Visual arts, this is an interesting article about doing 3D printed sculptures. So if you have like those MakerBots or different 3D printing machines, you can get your kids designing in CAD their own sculptures and 3D printing those. They have an educator guide that's a great resource too. And then here's all the contact info for all the presenters here. If you want to reach out or follow up, I'll be sure to send out this recording and these slides to you guys tomorrow. So you'll have all these resources as well. But thank you to all of our presenters. That was great information from kind of all spectrums of art and VAPA. So I hope everyone got as much out of this as I did. If you want to follow up, we have a YouTube channel that you can find through our SDCOE website as well to find our previous sessions. And that is it for us. 3 minutes to spare. If anybody has any questions, thank you all for coming and giving us an hour of your time this evening.